I have learned in pursuing multiplying disciples, leaders, churches, and businesses, 8 things. I've learned a new thing, man. It used to be 7 things. Now it's 8 things in 10 years. So, and they build on one another. So, if you go to onebody.church, okay, these things actually had a little ebook written, and you can have that ebook, but it's onebody.church. Under resources, under books, is the 7 things. I haven't added the 8th thing to it yet. But what I want to do in the next 2 sessions is I want to share these principles regarding multiplying disciples, leaders, churches, and businesses that the whole world might know. And if you guys haven't figured it out, I'm a storyteller. So all of these things will be interspersed with stories, but they're actually what Jesus told me to do was to tell my story. So this is my effort to be a blessing, to share some principles with you that I think are they're definitely scriptural, and we can't be any more spiritual than we are scriptural, right? So here's what the first thing that I learned. 1. So what I'll try to do is I'll do 3 or 4 in this one, and I'll do 3 or 4 in the next one. But 1, oh, there they are. So 1 is, if we take care of the depth of our ministry, God takes care of the breadth. I'll say it again. If we take care of the depth of our ministry, God will take care of the breadth. In John 17:3, this is what Jesus says. He says, "This is life eternal, to know the one true God and Jesus Christ whom he has sent." Intimacy is the foundation of multiplying disciples, leaders, churches, and businesses. Paul said he counted all things but loss that he might what? Know him. The power of his resurrection, the fellowship of his suffering, being made conformable to his image. Intimacy, oneness with Jesus and the Father is what Jesus prayed for. He prays in John 17 that they might be what? The first 11, that they might be one with him, as I am with you, that they might be one with us. Why? That the world might know. The why is intimacy. He's praying for that they will be so connected in intimacy of relationship with Jesus and the Father and with one another that the world might know. So this was my single biggest mistake is around this one. Is I had a insatiable, since coming to faith, hunger and thirst to know him. Not to know about him, but to experience intimacy with God. So I lost my first wife. I told you this story, right? So I lost my first wife to pancreatic cancer at 45. And I bet a lot of you guys have actually done the study Experiencing God, right? So experiencing God, point number 4 says, God speaks by his Spirit through his word, prayer, circumstances, and his church to reveal himself, his purposes, and his way. But just like we said, God speaks, right? He wants to reveal himself to us. He wants us to know him. And so I'd lost my first wife to pancreatic cancer, and I was a mess. Like I was just all 5 kids still at home. So you guys will find this funny, but cathartically, I'd always been in own a gym now, but I'd always been in the gym, always been a workout guy, lifting weights, but I decided that I would do a bodybuilding show. And it wasn't that funny. So when you do a bodybuilding show, there's like lots of crazy stuff that you do. So eat meals every couple hours, specific things, lots of cardio, lifting 6 days a week, But what I wanted to do was I basically wanted to honor my wife. So it was a cathartic thing. I was obsessed with like getting ready for this show to be on stage. And I actually posed to a song that has, have you ever lost a loved one that you thought died before their time? Maybe it's God speaking. So I wanted to honor her, but during that time frame, the 12 to 16 weeks that it took to get ready for this bodybuilding show, I would go to LA Fitness, and I would be in the sauna at about 5 or 5:30 in the morning, right? And one day, like I'm going through this Experiencing God Bible study by Blackaby, right? And I'm on that point, number 4. And I'm praying, God, I want to know you. I need you to reveal yourself to me. And stuff like this happens. I'm up on the top shelf, I guess, of the sauna thing, praying. And I look up, and there's literally a guy that weighs over 300 pounds. Like I don't know if you've ever been in a sauna, but there's the heater, right? And this guy is down on his knees in front of the heater. And I'm like, I look at him, and I go, are you praying? Stupid, right? He goes like, yeah. So I'm like, wow, this has got to be God. Because I was just praying about that, right? So I get down on my knees next to the guy in the sauna and begin to pray with him at LA Fitness at 5 or 5:30 in the morning, okay? Crazy, right? So then it turns out, I said, what are you praying for, man? He says, well, my name's PJ, and my wife, been married a long time, and she's on her way to Chicago because her mom's dying. And this will be the last time that she gets to see her mom. Whoa. I was like, bro, I just lost my wife. And so I shared basically that story with him and the gospel. My story and the gospel. That was before I had learned any of this stuff. And that guy goes, I'll never forget this. And I never saw him again. But maybe I was being like Rod Friend. Like that guy that poured into me and then left. And I poured into him. And I don't know what happened with PJ. But I know when I got trained in these ways that the foundation of all of this, it's not the tools. The tools are just tools. Intimacy is the foundation for multiplying with God, is the foundation for multiplying disciples, leaders, and churches. You do not manufacture movement. It comes from relational intimacy with God. Number 1, if you don't get this right, none of this stuff works. If we take care of the depth, he takes care of the breadth. And we don't, FYI, we don't produce fruit, we bear fruit. Jesus is the true vine. We bear fruit. And by the way, we bear fruit. It's a team sport. We are inclusive. So who measure themselves among themselves and compare themselves among themselves are not wise. It's all Jesus' fruit. It's not like, oh, look, we sell multiplication, the sizzle. Multiplication is the byproduct. Multiplication is a byproduct of being the type of disciples worth multiplying. That's the key. It's about the depth. He takes care of the breadth, and we corporately, from micro to macro, are bearing fruit that brings him glory. I didn't even use logos to figure that out, but that's true, bro. 2, pour deeply into the few who will obey no matter what the cost. Pour deeply into the few who will obey no matter what the cost. So Curtis poured into me. I spent 4 full days in Dadeville, Alabama, learning the basics of DMM and CPM. Curtis, I think it's 36 hours or 36 to 40 hours that I spent with Curtis in his home, him teaching me these things. And then I went back to Tampa to begin to obey with my wife from my home. I knew no one else. But if you've ever met Curtis Sargent, we're completely opposites. He's an introvert. He's probably on the spectrum, okay? And we're really different. Like, he asked me, like, hey, how could I improve this? I said, well, man, you suck at marketing, man. like you've done all this stuff, man. You've been like to China and seen these movies. You trained Yin Kai and done all this stuff, man. Yeah, I can help you, man. Like, I was arrogant, man. I knew how to produce, okay? I was successful in business, you know? And I was like, you're not very good at this, man. That's the truth. So I thought, like, dude, I'm going to go back to Tampa and I'm going to get after it, man. I'm going to get after it. Like, I know how to close. I know how to sell. You know, I learned these patterns and principles, okay? I'm like, bro, Bob, you got to tell your story, tell God's story, meet in these groups, okay? Ask these questions, okay? All right, let's go through it. You got it? All right, call me if you got questions. Okay, next. Hey, Terry, look, you got to tell your story, tell God's story, meet in these groups. This is the format to follow, okay? These are the questions, okay? All right, let's go through one. You got it? Good. Call me if you got questions. All right. Raheem, bro, this is the deal. You got to tell your story, tell God's story, meet in these groups, ask these questions, okay? And then keep doing that and show other people how to do that too. That's the key. You got to take this and give that to other people to do the same thing. You got it? Call me if you got questions. All right. So I basically was able to, with a few other people that were equally as dysfunctional as me, I made disciples. I started 400 of those groups. And I was miserable because I was trying to achieve. I was trying to close. So do you guys, anybody remember what the commandment is in Matthew 28? What's the commandment? The actual commandment. What are we commanded to do? Say that again, Terry. I'm glad you were listening. Make disciples, not start groups. Man, I hadn't made one disciple. Or maybe I had made some bad disciples, okay? So Curtis, he was talking to me, right? So this is over time, and he would come. I want you to understand this. Curtis would actually spend through the 3rd month. You can call me whenever you want to. And Curtis would continue to say things like, Lee, have you ever considered pouring deeply into the few? I'm like, no. It hadn't occurred to me. And like, he was coaching me though, of like you're going really wide, not deep, with like Amanda. And so I told him, I told Curtis, I said, I looked at him through that lens of production. I said, you don't know what you're talking about. This is working. It got to be so painful. Like, I was miserable. The number one wasn't there because I was going really wide and not deep with a few. You got to realize it's by depth that we actually get of being the type of disciples worth multiplying, that we get to multiplication, that we bear fruit that way. Everybody in here, you need to make one disciple. Who's your boy? Dawson Trotman, the navigator dude, bro? Who's your boy? Who's your girl? Who's your woman? Who's your man? Obedient disciples will gather. But you have to start with a disciple, with one. Pour deeply into the few who will obey no matter what the cost. The tools are just tools, okay? But you have to spend time in the model, time in the assist, and you need to be in the watch phase for a long time. Curtis would meet with the third month. He'd say you can call whenever you want to. But every summer for 3 years, Curtis Sargent would come to Tampa. Who does this? For 3 years, he would come to Tampa, and he would spend 30 to 45 days in Tampa, in my home, with other disciples and churches. Always, never like hierarchical at all. This is completely organic and decentralized. There aren't any buildings. There aren't any clergy. There's no programs, okay? And we definitely didn't have a lot of money. But that began to emerge. And what had to happen was it had to get so painful. It had to get so painful till I heard him. Till I heard him say, "Do you trust me?" You know how he told Peter, "Do you love me?" I didn't hear that. He said to me as I was praying, "Do you trust me?" And you know how I responded? Just like Peter, "You know I trust you." And then what flashed into my mind, Holy Spirit, everything I was doing that he hadn't told me to do. And this came so true to me, is when I stopped doing the things that he hadn't told me to do. And I only did what I heard him saying with the ones that he gave to me. I had a list. He showed me the ones that I was supposed to be pouring into. So when I began pouring into those 3 and training them to do the same thing, okay, I didn't even know about the 139, bro. I just knew that I had to pour deeply into the few who would obey no matter what the cost. That's when we started getting to generations of disciples and churches. You want to know how long 1 and 2 took, though? Hey, you take care of the depth, he takes care of the breadth. Pour deeply into the few who will obey no matter what the cost. 3 years. We sell that stuff. Everybody used to, like during that time, they'd go, "You got 400 groups, man. That's amazing, dude. That's success." That was failure. They wanted like we count how many. Like we measure quantity, not quality. It's about the depth of intimacy, and it's about the depth that you pour into that person. And this is how simple it is. Like right now, you guys actually have responsibility with it, just the horrible model that I've given to you already. Like you guys have some stuff that you can actually, what do you know and are doing that your disciple does not know and is not doing? That's it. What do you know and are doing that your disciple does not, that you need to share with them? That's how simple discipleship is. What do I know that I'm doing that my disciple doesn't know or is not doing? That's what you share with them. Here's some tools to help you with it. Go. Isn't that what he did? He's like, "Okay, hey, here's what I want you to do. All right, follow me, I'll make you to become fishers of men, okay? Hang out with me, okay? All right, you guys go out and do that, Find the person of peace, laborers are few, go out there, heal the sick, cast out demons, share the gospel with them, okay? They came back, okay, yeah, now tweak that this way. All right, you got it. That's what he did. So 1 and 2 took me 3 years to learn. And I just saying these things to be encouraging to you, okay? Because look at the raw material that he will use. Like if we actually realize that it's in our weakness that he gets glory. Like he will take ordinary people and do extraordinary things. So praise the Lord Jesus. He takes an orphan, abandoned, abused, addicted, lost a spouse, obsessive business guy, greedy, and he redeems that and uses that to bring glory to himself, because the communication of our faith becomes effectual by acknowledging every good thing that is in us by Christ Jesus. How does any of it work? Jesus. It's all Jesus. It's none of us. It's all of him. That takes all the pressure off, by the way. It's like, hey, you totally have to do this, okay? Like, I'm going to do it, but like, it's not going to work out if it's me. With that, apart me, so just fill in the blank. Apart from me, you can do nothing. How freeing is that, actually? So I try to have people do this, Raheem. I hope they're better at it than you were, okay? Everybody make a fist. Squeeze it really tight. Feel it, feel it, feel it. Let's produce, let's achieve, let's get to there. Let's conquer Everest. Now let your hand go. Let it be open. Does that feel better? Yeah. So where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. Christians in our country need to get to free. So 1 and 2 is take care of the depth, he takes care of the breadth. Pour deeply into the few who will obey no matter what the cost. Number 3, this is really encouraging, okay? This is really encouraging to me, okay? Keep doing what you're doing. You will get better at it. I don't care what you do, okay? Like everything in life, okay, is a question of competency or confidence or both. So if like we start from intimacy and we begin to share some simple, reproducible tools with other people that want to obey from that same way, at first, how good at it do you think you're going to be? Horrible. It's okay. But the more that you repeat it, the more that you do it, the better you will get at it, and the more he will use you, right? Because he wants to see that we're faithful. He takes care of the fruitful. You have to be faithful. So Jesus said this. So the third one is greater works than these will you do. He wants all of us to be faithful. He'll take care of the fruitful. But if we keep doing what we're doing, we will get better at it. Not only individually, but we will improve collectively. If Raheem's obeying in Memphis, okay, and Damien and Lee are obeying in Tampa and Fort Myers, and people are coming to faith, getting baptized, and we're pouring into a few, isn't that the same thing in Memphis from his household to Damien's household to Lee and Stacy's household to Terry's household? Like, isn't that Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, unto the uttermost parts of the world with one another? That's basically what you're saying, man. We could have just done your devotion and gone home, bro. Here's the thing. We win if we don't quit. But what happens? These all build with one another. So Jesus said the kingdom's like 2 kids, 2 boys. He said, hey, I want you to go out and to work in my kingdom. And the son goes, you got it. I'm going. Then what'd he do? Didn't obey. Second kid says, I'm not doing that. But then he obeyed. The key is we win if we don't quit, if we actually do it. So the point is, people ask, where do you spend your time? I try to spend my time the same way Jesus spent his time, with the few who will obey no matter what the cost. So this stuff I'm telling you, It's simple to understand. It's not easy. It's simple. It'll cost you everything. You're going to die. You're going to lose friends. You're going to be lied about. All they that live godly in Christ Jesus shall what? Suffer persecution. We grow in 4 ways. 1, we grow in self-feeding. God speaks to us by his word and in prayer. So we grow in intimacy through self-feeding, the word of God and prayer. We grow in community with one another. Like, in other words, the essence of this actually begins to occur, right? So we grow and like, whoa, that's God. That's how we connect. Like, if you get it, like I'm like the guy with his hair on fire, okay? But there's a spiritual substance to these guys, okay? That like, it's like, whoa, that's God. Wow. Same thing, Raheem. Like, what is that? God. So we grow in community with one another. That's because of Jesus. But the 4th way that we grow is through persecution and hard times. Most, I don't mean it bad, they won't pay the price. It's the few. So Jesus, worst marketer in the world. Watch it. Horrible marketer. Okay? Horrible. Hey, who do you guys, all the disciples are following him, okay? Joe. I'm going to pretend I'm Jesus. I know it's a stretch. Joe, way to go. You have to eat my flesh and drink my blood if you're going to be my disciple.
Don't do it.
Yeah? No. Yeah. Bro, hey, way to go. You need to sell everything that you have. Give it to the poor. Surrender your entire life and come follow me. Sell it all. Leave it all. Come follow me. Man, wow, everybody's leaving. These are the only ones that I got left right here. These are the only ones. Hey, this is why he was the worst marketer. Hey, you guys want to leave too? You guys want to go too? I'm like, wait a minute, Jesus, it's the same way I did with Curtis. Dude, that's all you got left, bro. You're messing up. He was ruthless to get to the kind of disciple that was worth multiplying. That's what we have to do. Willing to spend and be spent. So, story. I'm in Israel before Jesus. Israel before Jesus. I'm in Haifa. I'm buying drugs in the Holy Land outside of a bar. So I think the guy's reaching into his jacket to get this plate of hash that I'm going to buy, okay? And he pulls out a .45 caliber pistol. So I've been drinking a little bit. So I thought I was going to go all Jackie Chan. Hey, I was going to like, I'm getting it, you know? And then I was going to, and then run. Now, I didn't speak any Hebrew, and he didn't speak any English. But the next thing he did was cock that pistol. Don't shoot! Don't shoot. He was holding a gun on me. Everybody raise their hands up like this. This is the universal sign of what?
Surrender.
This is what Jesus wants us to do. But he doesn't hold a gun on you. He wants us to do this and not to quit. Keep doing what you're doing. You'll get better at it, but it's going to be the hardest thing you've ever done. You're going to suffer. You're going to be ridiculed, okay? You might even die. It's worth it. He's worth it. So that one, that took me to through about year 3 or 4. And that got me to number 4. It took me till 2016, the end of 2016, to get, take care of the depth, he'll take care of the breadth. Pour deeply into the few who will obey, no matter what the cost. There you keep doing what you're doing, you'll get better at it. Number 4, obey. Read Matthew 5:19. Obey and train others. You cannot pass on what you do not possess. So here's the thing, is you have to be a practitioner of these things, not a theoretician. So people that write books about these things, high knowledge, lower obedience, lower spreading, not a disciple. Everybody in here can ride a bike, right? Learn to ride a bike, okay? I just want to know who in here learned to ride a bike by reading a book. Did anybody learn to ride a bike by reading a book? Nope. You had to see a bicycle. Somebody had to get on the bicycle, push it a little bit, pedal, 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 crash. And then it was like, what did you have to do to learn to ride the bike? Well, after you crash, you had to what?
Back up.
And get on the bicycle, right? But what if you just said like, I guess you weren't meant to be a bike rider, you know? Like, hey, you tried it, didn't work out, sorry. See how they build? Now at the juncture, you know, how long does it really take you to see a bike, to somebody to help you to ride the bike, okay, till you don't need any help riding the bike? How long do you think that takes? 15 hours. So like short, brief. The model, there's only one, I shared this question, don't answer it with it. There's only one person that didn't have to see a bicycle before riding a bicycle. No, but good answer. Always answer Jesus, yeah. Jesus, like, it's always Jesus. No matter what the security question is, Jesus. Like, you know, your favorite animal, Jesus, you know. First kiss, Jesus. You know, anything, just Jesus, you know. It doesn't make any difference to see the answer is Jesus, okay? You are so holy. The model is brief, the assist is brief. But let me give you an example, okay, is, I'm going to pick on somebody. I'll pick on Bob. I've done that before. Like Bob's known how to ride a bicycle for a long time, okay? But if Bob said, called, if whoever it was, your mom, your dad, if they were still here, if he picked up his phone, he said, hey, you know, Dad, I'm in Memphis today, and I really want to ride my bike. And yeah, I know you're in Minnesota, but could you come here and be with me and help me ride my bike? It means so much to me, Dad. That's ridiculous, right? There came a time that Bob knew how to do the wheelie, you know, to jump over things, to turn, to do all the stuff of bike riding. There was a time where it was appropriate, like after that Dad could go inside, you know, and turn on Sports Center. He's got it. It's all good. So the training cycle is the hardest thing for people to get here around all of these patterns and principles. It's model, assist, watch, and launch or leave. So Curtis, in 2016, he trained me in March of 2013. By the summer of 2016, where Zume, that thing, is launching, we're doing a conference in Tampa, Florida with disciples and churches from a lot of other people around the United States, okay, in Tampa, Florida. And he says to me, I think you got it. Like 13 to 14, 14 to 15, 15 to 16, over 3 years. The model and the assist was 3 months. First, once a month, once a week for the first month, twice a week the second month, third month, many times as you want to. Over the next few years, 30 to 45 days in Tampa. Model, assist, watch phase had begun. Came back, inspected, And I said to Curtis, I said, whoa, dude, not so fast. Like, there's lots of stuff that I don't know yet. And he said, stop whining. You sound like the Ephesian elders. Literally, you sound like the Ephesian elders. He said, I'm always going to answer the phone. You know what? Our phone calls are remarkably different today after 10 years. Curtis is saying he gets way more out of me than I get out of him now. That's appropriate. But you have to obey to be able to pass on to others. I don't have to talk to Amanda too much. I don't talk to Damien too much. I don't actually talk to the elders in Tampa too much anymore because I did the training cycle over 10 years with them. Modeled, assisted, watched, and left. But I had to be doing that from the most simple expression of the church in my home with my wife. I had to do that as image bearers, obeying, telling our story, telling God's story, okay, pouring deeply into the few, going through ridiculously hard times where I thought I was dying, but had to keep doing obeying and training others. All I'm doing here, FYI, is for, it's not even that good, actually. Like, everybody's so kind, okay? It's not that great. But God will take like that and do something good with it, man, because he's faithful. But obey and train others. So I used to tell, I'm done here, this is number 4. So I used to tell people when I came up and I spoke, I said, only with expectations comes disappointment. And that's really true. So if I can just get you to like completely lower your expectations of me, okay, then I won't disappoint you. So I honestly think I've achieved that. So those 4 things. So I want you to understand this. So the first 4, the next 4, it took me literally from 2013 through, I stayed in Tampa and did that. And I didn't start going to my first, in 2017, okay, is where I began to go to Africa. So I had a growing strategy in Tampa of disciples, leaders, and churches. And that's where it all was. One body was just a dream of like, I think the Lord is like, there's just one body. And the church in Fort Myers is not going to be called one body because people think organizationally. But we all are a part of that one body. So I started going to, I met a guy and I went to Mozambique, Africa, and I trained a guy and his wife in their home. And then I took him with me and I went to Uganda. And I trained a guy named Judah Gaba, who was my translator, for 6 days in 6 different villages in Uganda. There are literally thousands and thousands of disciples and churches across Uganda, the districts. So then I went, that's starting. I met a guy from Mauritius, and I start to coach the same thing. Pour deeply into Jude, pour deeply into Kenny, okay? I got a guy named Nathan that I take with me to South Sudan. You know where these bookmarks came from? They came from being in a village of people like, they don't understand this, man. We created that tool, and there are literally tens of thousands of those all around the world, those bookmarks, man. Because me and another guy went to South Sudan and started to figure out how to pass on, how to obey and train others among the Taposa, the GA, the Nyangakong. And these are unreached, unengaged people groups, okay? So we watched it from those 4 things over 4 years, from house to house, city to city, nation to nation, multiplying disciples, leaders, and churches. Relationally, I don't get ahead of myself, but that all happened in 4 years. I was in a big hurry at first, man. So if you ponder those things, it's the same way everywhere with everyone. Intimacy, you take care of the depth, he takes care of the breadth. Pour deeply into the few that he gives to you. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't quit. Obey. and train others. Those are the first four.